Well, we are not talking about the Cowboys today. I mean, we could talk about Dak, we could talk about the future, but we're going to talk about a very important topic. And it's an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people, and that's, is God calling you someplace else? Now, in ministry, that's a little uneasy because we're never quite sure if God is calling us someplace else and how to deal with that. So to start things off, can you share with our listeners about a time when you struggled with that tension between knowing if you should leave a ministry or stick through the uncertainty?
You mean like right now? Like what's happening in my life right now?
Hey, the platform is yours.
Yeah, I think, sometimes I think the biggest issue, particularly that I see in my own life and in other people's lives, because I get the question a lot, not as a general question, but as a specific, like, how do I know if it's time to leave this or not? Is that we really want to be good stewards. We really don't want to quit. We don't want to, we're charged in the word of being faithful and persevering and being long suffering. And so if it's time to leave something, am I quitting, or is it time? So because I'm always pulled in a million different directions, and because I want to be faithful, because my family's in ministry, because I love women's ministry, and that has pulled me in a lot of different directions. I'm constantly there with what am I going to say no to or yes to. But I think that the question always is, it's not about being faithful to the thing, it's about being faithful to the person who put the thing in your path. And really, I think that's where we get a little tripped up. If I'm not leading, who's going to lead? If I don't bring the brownies, who's going to bring the brownies? If I don't teach the children, who's going to do it? And I want to be faithful to the thing, when really the only thing that you're supposed to be faithful to is the person and what he's calling you to do. And if he brought you in to fill a spot, then why would you not think that he could bring someone else? And often he doesn't bring someone else until you get out of the way.
Wow.
And so you really have to have your ear to the ground with what he's telling you to do, because really that's the answer to the question. It's never the thing.
And those times when you know that you know that you know that you know, I find that, especially with me, sometimes there's times I know that I'm supposed to go on to something different, but I hate change. I would prefer
hate change too.
I would prefer to stick in my routine, my daily routine, because change is uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable for most of us. How can we kind of work through that discomfort of change when we really would our human nature, we'd prefer to stay in that routine and say what we're doing, but God is calling us to something else? How do we get through that? That, I don't want to call it laziness, but I think it's just what we're used to.
Well, listen, I mean, our God is a God who regularly required people to change. And that change often came by way of invitation. Abraham was told to leave Ur and go to another land, and he went, right? I mean, there are invitations always that involve change. I don't think we can assume that our God will not ask us to change, because how else will we be different than how he found us? So I think the assumption is, in order for me to be made into the image of Christ, I will have to be uncomfortable, because he is not interested in me staying the way that I am. And so change is an invitation to become more like Christ. Change is an invitation to exceedingly abundantly be above and beyond anything that we could ask or imagine. Change is an invitation to see God's glory and to see God's power. If we never leave the ground to go up into the mountain, how will we ever see the glory of what God allows us to see as he passes by? So instead of looking at the discomfort of change, I think to look at change as an invitation to what eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, because how else will we do that if we stay where we are?
But ultimately, how do we know when God is calling us to a new level of ministry?
You won't be able to run from it. You won't be able to shake it. Everywhere you go, you'll run into it. People will be saying it to you without knowing what God has already been speaking to you. You'll flip on your radio. God will repeat himself. And then the discomfort that you can't shake because you want to stay still, you won't be able to shake the discomfort in staying still. There will be something that's calling you upwards. I have college students in my house right now. We've got 5 kids, ages 31 to 14. I've got 1 in college, 1 senior on their way in. And if there's one thing that I've learned, there comes a point, sometimes it happens at 16, sometimes it happens at 22, 23, maybe even 25. But at some point, they don't want to live at home anymore. I don't have to create it. I don't have to force it. I don't have to lecture it. At some point, out of their own designed growth, because it's built in, they won't want to be where they are. And I won't have to push them hard. There will be a growth, a call of growth because of our design. God told Adam and Eve in the garden, they're supposed to rule. Let them rule. It was built into us by the Creator to have exercise and dominion over various seasons of our life. So you recognize the discomfort and you move on.